All right, so if you've ever wanted to scrape a website without having to learn how to code, you've got to use this tool I just made. So here's an example. Go to Zillow. Let's go to San Francisco. And let's say I want to scrape this list of houses, and I want to scrape the price, the bedrooms, the bathrooms, and the square feet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the tool, go back, and this is open source, by the way, so you can actually just like rip this off and use it yourself. So create new scrape, put in the URL. So let's copy this, put it in there. And what do I want to put in there? I want price, bedrooms, bathrooms, and square feet. Start scraping. So I already have done this once. So I'm just going to go here. Let's click this. You'll see that in this like front end that we made, you can see that it scraped. It basically scrolled down one time and it scraped the page for, the price, bedrooms, bathrooms, square feet, exactly what we asked for. You can get it as a CSV or you can get it as a JSON. And so in this tutorial, we're going to help you basically build this yourself if you want to. All the code is available. Like, we've open sourced it. Yeah, we're just going to put this out there. Basically, this diagram explains exactly what's going on the back end. I'm not really going to talk about the front end because the front end, you can do whatever you want with the front end. The back end is where the magic happens. So there's really 7 different steps, and it basically goes like this. We, in the front end, put in the URL, we put in all the columns that we want to extract from the URL, and we start scraping. That starts a job, which we send to the backend, and that starts this like pipeline of actually like pulling that data out of the HTML. So the first step is basically that we open a browser at that URL and we pull the HTML and we save it. So that's basically what's going on here. We use Playwright to basically have this like backend browser that the code is going to open up. And that's essentially what's happening. It's opening up a browser, it's pulling the HTML, it's saving it so that we can use it later. The next step is we use a library in Python called Beautiful Soup. And basically we pull out all of the like tags that we don't need for the LLM that's going to pull the data from the HTML. You don't need, all the information that's in the script tags, in the header tags, all the stuff that you're importing. It's just unnecessary information. And so basically what we do in the next step, once we pull the HTML, is we just pull all that stuff out and we just throw it away. Once we threw out all the unnecessary information, we tokenize all of the text basically. Tokenization is chunking up the characters in that entire block of HTML in such a way that it makes it easier for the LLM to understand. You don't really need to understand what's going on. Literally, you just use a package and it'll do it for you. Once you've tokenized the HTML that you want to pull the data from, then we just send that over to Claude Sonnet. We give it a prompt to say, hey, pull the data. Here's an example of how I want you to pull the data. And I want you to put in a CSV or a JSON. We give it that prompt and it does its magic. And then we send that to the front end and that's what you see. So that's at a high level what's going on here. Modal, what you see at the top here is basically what we use on the back end to actually run all of these functions. I'm not like sponsored by them, but my co-founder, he uses Modal just because he likes it. So I'm sure you can use whatever you want, but this is just what we happen to use. But I'm just going to quickly walk through those steps in the code. We're basically going to start here where the job is sent to Firestore. So let's go into the code and scroll down to the main function. And if you scroll to the main function, basically what you see is we're fetching the job. So that's what's happening here. Then what we do is we update the job. We tell it that, hey, we're actually running, and we start processing, which is what's happening right here. So when we see what's happening in the process job function, you'll see what's going on. So process job, let's go there. And you can see here that what's happening is we're importing Playwright, and we're starting up the browser, we're opening the browser, and we are loading up the URL. So that's essentially what's happening here. And if you go back to the diagram, that's this step right here. We're opening the URL in a browser on the back end, and that's exactly what this is doing. So we open the browser, and we go to the URL. We, wait for a timeout because sometimes there might be an error. We pull the HTML, so that's what's happening here. So this is JavaScript, and we're saying, hey, pull the outer HTML and save it in this HTML variable. Once you get that, return that HTML. If you have an error, return an error. So that's what's happening there. So basically, this step 3 is the process job function. So we process the job, we update the status of the job, and we write it to the blob store. So this is just like us saving the HTML if we need to go back to it later, which right now we don't actually do anything with it, but it's good to have it there. Then we update the job. And now we go on to actually processing the HTML with Beautiful Soup. So that would be this step right here. So far, we have sent our job to Firestore, or we have actually fetched the job. We've opened the browser, and we have pulled the HTML, and we've actually saved it to the blob storage. And now what we're going to do is we're going to clean it up. Basically, we're going to remove all the unnecessary tags and information that the LLM doesn't need to actually pull the data. So that's what's happening here. So let's go to where that's happening, which is this function, gen chunks. You can see what's happening is we're cleaning the data. We're cleaning the HTML. So let's go to where that is. All right, right here. So we import from Beautiful Soup, and we have all these tags that we do not want in the HTML. We don't want to send that to the LLM because it's just unnecessary. We don't need iframes. We don't need canvas. We don't need circle. We don't need no script. We don't need script. We don't need any of this. Regex to remove other unnecessary things. So we remove those block tags, which is what's happening here. We remove the other data attributes. We remove the comments. We don't need the comments. We remove new lines, remove empty tags, remove specific attributes that we have again there, like specified up here. And we return the cleaned up HTML. Then we just chunk everything for the LLM. So this is where the tokenization happens. So if you look at DFS gen chunks, right here, you'll see that we are tokenizing the HTML, the cleaned up HTML. So that's what's happening here. We have this other from concatenate chunks. Don't really know what it does, to be honest. My co-founder did this. So let's see, concatenate chunks of text. Oh, I see. So what's happening with tokenizer is you're breaking up the text into like small blocks, small chunks. And this is basically like concatenating them back together because of, I believe, the context window of the LLM. Might be wrong about that, but it's that's essentially what's happening there. So let's go back to gen chunks. So basically we cleaned up the HTML and we tokenized the data so that we can send it to the LLM. That's essentially what just happened. So we cleaned it, we tokenized the information, and now we actually need to send it to Sonnet with the prompt to pull the data that we need. And then that way we can send it in the format that we need, the CSV or the JSON, to the front end. And that's what we're going to talk about in the next step. So now let's go back to the main function. And you'll see we just cleaned the data, we tokenized it, and now we're ready to parse. We're ready to send it over to Claude. So this is where the magic is happening right here in the main function. So we go to the parse blob function. So let's go there. What's happening in parse blob? We are parsing. What's happening in parse? So this is where the magic is happening. So in the parse function, we're querying Anthropic. Anthropic is the maker of Claude Sonnet. So obviously you can use any LLM you want, but we're using Claude Sonnet. So you go to query Anthropic, and that is where the magic is happening. So we import Anthropic, import the operating system. We send a message to Claude Sonnet. So you can see that that's the model we're using. We send it a system prompt, and we send it the cleaned up HTML, which is user message. So let's look at the system prompt. This is exactly what we're telling Claude Sonnet to do to the data to get us back the data from the HTML that we're looking for. You can see here, this is that system prompt that we're giving Claude Sonnet. So basically we're saying, you're a data extraction expert. I will give you an HTML blob and a list of fields to extract. Extract the fields in JSON format. If there's relevant data and the fields are price and rating, return this basically. A price with a price field with a list of prices, a rating field with a list of ratings. If there's no relevant data, basically just send us back an empty list. And then we give examples. So we give examples of HTML with data that we want to extract, and we give it the output that we're trying to get from that HTML. So we give it one example, we give it example 2. If there are missing fields, make sure to pad the missing fields. So we give it a bunch of examples of how we want the output to be. And we hope that, it'll be able to do its job, which, it does. So that's essentially what's happening in Query Anthropic. And that's the prompt that we're giving it. So let's go back to the main function. And if we go back to like the overall high level, how this works, we just called Anthropic to pull all the data that we need. And then we update the job. We tell it that we're done. And now we send it over to the front end is essentially what's happening here. So at a high level, that's really what's going on here. It's not too complicated. All of the code is in the description and it's on GitHub. The reason why we're open sourcing this is because we found this helpful for ourselves. And, we are starting an agency where we want to basically consult with small businesses or startups, and we want to help them use or maximize their usage of all these different AI tools that are coming out every single day. So, if you know anyone that needs any help or you want to talk to us, just please reach out. There's going to be like information in the description.